Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nakat's Bookish Cafe. Today I am here to start a spoiler-filled vlog for the book Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. If you follow my channel, then you know that I have a monthly challenge read. This is essentially a book that I randomly pick out of a cup and I need to try and read it within that month. I selected these books because they intimidate me and they've been on my TBR for a while and I just haven't gotten myself to read them, and Strange the Dreamer is one of those books because it has been on my TBR for many a year and I just have never gotten around to reading it. And it is a well-beloved story, and that definitely intimidates me because I'm a little worried that I won't like it as much as everyone, but fingers crossed that is not the case. So this video is not a recap video or anything like that, though I'm sure that if you're looking to be reminded of kind of what went down in this story, if it's been a few months or years since you read this book and you're looking to get into book 2, this video might help. I really don't have a plan going into this video. This is only my second time doing a spoiler-filled video, so I am still rather inexperienced with these, but I knew always that I would do one of these videos for this book just because it seems to be one of those books that people are very vague about, and I wanted to be able to really express what I was feeling while reading this book without spoiling people. So this will have spoilers essentially pretty much from the very beginning. I mean, obviously I don't know anything about this book going into it, so it might not be super spoilery in the very beginning because I don't know any spoilers. But if you have not read this book, then you probably should not be watching this video, but I would love if you came back once you do read this book. So a quick summary of this book, because I'm assuming that you guys already know what it's about, but I just want to kind of let you know where I stand, and that is that all I know is that we are following Laszlo Strange, and he is really obsessed with this town called Weep, which doesn't seem to actually be the name of this town, but this town kind of disappeared off of maps, and it seems people knew that it existed, but they don't really know like what it was called or what was going on there or anything along those lines. And one day a group of people from Weep show up at Laszlo's door and ask him to come to their town because they need some sort of issue resolved, and I guess because he's done so much research into their town, they're hoping that he will be able to assist them. And it seems there that he meets a woman who is able to go into people's dreams and maybe even alter those dreams. And from what I know, it seems that there is a bit of a romance between the two of them. But that is literally all that I know. I don't know what kind of town Weep is. I don't know what kind of world we live in, if it's a contemporary setting, and then when we go to Weep we see more of a fantastical setting, or if the whole world is slightly more fantastical. I do know that the female main character seems to be blue, so I know that we're not fully dealing with humans in this story, but I don't know if we're dealing with fae or what we're dealing with here. I have heard that the writing in here is very beautiful, and that there is quite a bit of politics, I believe, in this book, which is something I do enjoy in my fantasy. So we will see what I think of this story. I really need to finish this book by the end of the month because I've already planned my September TBR, and it's one of those TBRs where you just gotta hit the ground running on day one to have a chance in hell of finishing it. So this book needs to be finished by the end of the month. Today is the 22nd. This book is over 500 pages, just slightly over 500 pages. I am not the fastest reader. I wish I could be the kind of person that reads 100 pages in a day, like easy breezy. but I'm just not. And I do work full time. But that being said, I kind of calculated that I need to read at least 60 pages a day. So that is my goal right now. And I will probably, I'll check in with you at least once a day. But I'll check in with you more frequently if something big happens. And I come in here to kind of just give my thoughts, essentially. So this is very much just a diary of me reading this book and being like, hey, this just happened and this is my thoughts on that. So hopefully you enjoy it, and hopefully I have some good things to say about this book, and hopefully I fall in love with it just like everyone else seems to. All right, I am here for our first update on Strange the Dreamer, and I am on page 48, so almost on page 50. I'm about to head to the gym, so I figured I would go ahead and do my update for the night, though I will definitely be reading more tonight and will probably exceed the 60 page mark. I would say that this is a relatively fast read, but I feel like I always say that and then I time myself and I realize that I'm not, in fact, reading fast at all. I'm just not a fast reader. But essentially, let's talk about how things are going. First thing is, people were not lying about the writing. The writing really is beautiful and really descriptive and unique and creative. So I am having a grand old time with this writing. As far as the story, when I first went into it, I didn't even know what kind of setting we would be in. I was like, is it going to be modern? Is it going to be historical? Is it going to be fantasy? And I would say it's giving historical with like a pinch of fantasy in it. It's primarily historical. Laszlo seems to have been born in a time of war and was orphaned and raised at an abbey. And there he kind of learned to be a scribe and taught himself to read. And one day he was sent to this really prestigious library to drop off some documents, and he just decided never to leave. He was like, I'm staying here. And the librarian that worked there was like, the library has chosen you, so we will let the library keep you. And so he himself becomes a librarian assistant, which isn't like a prestigious position or anything, but it allows him to continue his research into the town of Weep. So I think that the way that this has kind of started out was really interesting. So it seems that Weep has always been this place that has been out of reach and has been really mysterious, and everyone has just always been really interested in stories about it. And these travelers from across the desert would bring like snippets of information about Weep, and people would just like gobble it up. And this was a very dangerous desert that you had to know how to cross it. Like otherwise you would just go into the desert and you would never return. And one day about 200 years ago, the people who used to cross the desert to trade and bring these stories just stopped coming, and no one really knows why. And while people have kind of gone into the desert to see if they can find the city of Weep and the treasures it holds, no one has returned. And then when Laszlo was really young, he was always really obsessed with Weep. He would play games where, you know, he would pretend to be one of the warriors of Weep. And one day while he was playing, he realized he didn't remember the name anymore. So essentially, he knew what Weep was called when he was young, and then just one day, like, it was erased from everyone's mind and from all the books. Like all the titles of books about Weep and all the receipts from merchants and stuff changed the name of this town to Weep, and like literally no one can remember it. And most people are kind of like, well, I guess I just misremembered. It's Weep. It's always been Weep. But Laszlo seems to have a stronger connection to Weep because he doesn't like to say the name because it feels like tears in his mouth, and he just feels like really uncomfortable saying that. So from the beginning, you can see that Laszlo has a stronger connection to Weep just because the disappearance of his name has a bigger impact on him than anyone else. So he's spending all his time here kind of like chilling in the library, researching what they say about Weep and whatnot. And obviously he always dreams of going to Weep. But a lot of people at this point don't even believe that Weep is a real place anymore. And it's kind of been put with the fairy tales. And one day, this kingdom seems to be on the brink of war again. And our character obviously doesn't want that to happen. And he hears a conversation between the alchemist of the queen and his father, the alchemist's father, not Laszlo. He doesn't have a father. And it seems that what is the problem is that their kingdom is out of gold. And this alchemist has been trying to change lead into gold, and it's just not working. And Laszlo is like, hey, I think I read something in one of my books about Weep that changing one mineral to another is something that has to include your soul. And it kind of seems like, and I don't know if it's just like something they say to be like mystical magical or if it's like something biological, but it almost seems like the people here have two hearts, one that pumps blood and one that contains your spirit. But he kind of was like, goes to this alchemist and was like, hey, you know, by the way, the people of Weep say that you have to include your spirit in order to change minerals. And the alchemist was like, you're crazy. Okay, you're mocking me and you need to get the hell out of here. And Laszlo was like, I'm so sorry that I thought that I could help. I'm a nobody, my mistake, and all that, until he realizes that like a few weeks later, the alchemist is able to change lead into gold. So, and now the alchemist is back and is asking for all of Laszlo's books because Laszlo has been writing these books with like all the information that he can gather on Weep, and Laszlo is like, what the hell does he want with this information? So he's like a little bit nervous, and I'm really intrigued to see what the alchemist wants to go ahead and do with that. And I'm also intrigued to see when the people of Weep show up and kind of how that plays out. I mean, I feel like this alchemist will probably play a bit of a role because he kind of seems to be Laszlo's opposite. You know, he was the one who grew up with everything. He didn't grow up in poverty. He didn't grow up an orphan. He got all the schooling. He has all the money that he wants to do all the research that he wants. And at the same time, it seems like both of them have maybe like similar goals at this point, that the alchemist wants to look into Weep as well, but maybe for different reasons than Laszlo. So I'm not sure if this alchemist is good or if he's bad, or kind of where we're sitting with him. He's clearly someone who has a lot of power, and sees himself as superior, but at the same time, we saw that he's being physically and emotionally abused by his father and has a lot of pressure on him to kind of create this gold out of lead to save the kingdom. And sometimes people can break under pressure like that. So we'll see what his response is, if he kind of breaks and becomes a bad person, or if he kind of rises to the occasion and he and Laszlo become some sort of partnership and kind of work together. Not really sure. As far as the first chapter, there was, or I should say the prologue, it kind of mentioned the blue girl that I talked about, and it seems she's not quite human and she fell from the sky and died. So I know from what people have said that she's able to travel through people's dreams, and I'm kind of wondering, is that the only way she can talk to people, like because she's dead, or is she have a physical body? And it clearly seems that her arrival and her death was kind of the start of all this, maybe the disappearance of Weep, or Weep cutting itself off from society and all that jazz. But it's also interesting that Weep was cut off, and then years and years later, like over 100 years later, then the name disappeared. So the timeline is just kind of interesting. Like, why would you disappear, let people remember you for 200 years, and then make yourself seem as if you were some sort of fairy tale from the beginning? So interesting things are happening here in the first 50 pages, and I'm definitely intrigued to see where things go. And that is my first update of this book, and I will probably update you sometime later tomorrow with some more thoughts. Hopefully we start our journey to Weep and start meeting people from Weep and getting some sort of answers and whatnot. And I will be interested to see how much we focus on Weep as well as this kingdom that Laszlo's living in, because it's on the brink of war. So that's an interesting concept that I feel like we can't just like leave behind. We can just be like, goodbye kingdom that's about to fall into war and maybe cease to exist. So we will see. So I'll be interested to see how the author balances the issues of this kingdom along with the issues that Weep is facing. So I will check in with you later. All right, guys, so it is evening. I know I said that I would check in with you guys sometime tomorrow, but I figured I would check in with you now because oh, I thought that was upside down, because this moth being upside down always messes me up. But I have reached page 80, so we definitely read our 60 pages, and it is past my bedtime, but exciting things were happening, so I couldn't put this book down. I was like, one more chapter, and then I was like, okay, I just gotta read one more, and then I was like, okay, gotta read one more. So here we are, and the warriors of Weep have come, and they are traversing the different countries and kingdoms looking for scholars, because they have overcome a great darkness and are recovering from whatever bad thing happened to them hundreds of years ago. However, there seems to be one more issue that they just can't solve themselves. So they are looking for like mathematicians, and what else were they looking for? All right, so mathematicians and natural philosophers, and then of course the alchemist, which was Nero, our alchemist that Laszlo has helped immensely, and clearly they are not gonna be friends. I thought maybe they would be allies, but Nero is an asshole. I don't know how else to describe him. He is out only for himself. He's out there to make a name for himself. He is more than happy to take credit for other people's work, and he is kind of a snake, and I don't like him at all. And he is going to Weep as well, but luckily our boy Laszlo stood up for himself and spoke to the warriors of Weep in their language, so they know that he is definitely someone that they should take take with them. He says that he knows how to tell stories. He's like, ugh, why did I just say that? But they're like, we haven't heard many new stories, so we would love for you to come. And I believe he's gonna act kind of as an assistant to their head warrior. So that's gonna be an interesting position for him. And hopefully Nero doesn't cause too much trouble, because it's very obvious that he is there for his own benefit and that he doesn't really care that much about Weep. And so I feel like he's probably not going to be the one that solves Weep's problems. It's probably going to be Laszlo, because that's just how these stories work. But that being said, I'm still really enjoying the story. I mean, like I said, I didn't want to put it down. The pacing of the story is pretty good so far. I'm enjoying it. 80 pages in, and it seems that our adventure is starting, and I am excited to see where we go from here. I'm interested because it seems that he has joined them right away, while the others will be joining them in 4 weeks to cross the desert. But Laszlo is going with them right now because he's like, I'm pretty sure if I stay behind and wait 4 weeks that Nero is gonna have me killed, so I'm just gonna go with you guys like right now and leave everything behind and just start my new adventure. And I was like, good choice, because Nero is not happy whatsoever. And also Laszlo was able to see this bird that the warriors are like, oh my god, you saw her, she's here. And Laszlo was like, yeah, you know, I saw her following you guys. So I'm wondering if that's our dream girl, if they're nervous about her following, if it's a good omen, if it's a bad omen, like what's going on there. So I am excited to continue the story, as I've already mentioned a few times, but I don't know what else to say. I'm having a good time with it. So those are my thoughts so far, and this time I really will check in with you tomorrow, because I am going to bed. Guys, I always hate coming on the camera with my hair up, but this is how I'd like to have my hair, because I don't like when it's down. I like how it looks, but I don't like how it feels. But I just wanted to come and check in. We are on page 130. I believe I said I had to get to page 140 today if I want to have read 60 pages. Because yeah, so we ended on page 80 and we want to read 60 pages. So I'm not that good at math, but that's relatively simple math. So I only actually have to read 10 more pages, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to read more than that. This really is a quick read for me, I feel, because I feel oftentimes I say it's a quick read and then it's not, because I'm a slow reader, and I feel like I've already said this in this vlog, but it's just who I am. But this book really is addictive. Like, I pick it up and I want to keep reading, and it frustrates me that my lunch break ends and now I have to go back to work. But I want to go ahead and just give you a quick update, just because we are now in part 2 of the story, and Laszlo has been traveling with the caravan from Weep for a little while now, and they have gone ahead and met up with the other people who are joining them on their journey and have been crossing the desert for many a months. And Laszlo has changed quite a bit during this time. He's no longer, you know, that dreamer that has been living in a library. He is now someone who has definitely toughened up a little bit. He's gotten stronger. He has calluses on his hands. You know, he's got lines around his eyes from squinting at the horizon instead of squinting at book pages in the candlelight, things like that. And he has just grown a lot as a person, especially it seems like he's still not like the most confident person, but he has gathered some confidence. Like he doesn't feel as intimidated by, say, Nero, the alchemist, who's still being like an asshole to him. But he does seem to have toughened up a little bit when it comes to his personality as well as his physique. So he's looking good right now, I guess. And they are about to reach Weep. Essentially, they tomorrow will be reaching the mountain range. They're not really mountains. It seems to be more like hills, and legend says that it's made out of the melted bones of demons, that these kind of angel-like creatures came and killed all the demons that were enslaving humans and burned them on a pyre here, and they just kind of melted into kind of like a glass-like substance. And so once they cross that, or cross through it, I think, they will go ahead and have arrived at Weep. So Laszlo's very excited. I'm really excited. We don't yet know exactly why they're here, and they've kind of been trying to guess because the people from Weep decided not to tell them, because they're like, oh, we don't want you to like overthink it while you're in the desert and then decide that you would rather not deal with that problem, so we're just gonna surprise you with it. And everyone's like, okay, kind of suspicious. So I'm intrigued. We have had a couple chapters from Sarai, and I hope I say her name right. That's kind of what I've been calling her. And Sarai is the blue girl. I was surprised by how young she was, because I could have sworn she was the one from the epilogue, but she is only 17 years old. So it seems that she was only born kind of around the time when the city's real name disappeared and became Weep. So she wasn't there for the original event that happened 200 years ago, where the city was cut off from the rest of the world, but she does seem to be the child, one of the children of the gods that were eventually killed about 17 or so years ago at this point. And now she lives in this ruin with her godling siblings, and they are all being cared for by ghosts, because if the humans find them, they will kill them. Why the humans killed the gods? I mean, it kind of seems like her mom was not like the greatest person. She was like a goddess of darkness or destruction or something along those lines. So it was possible that the gods just kind of overstayed their welcome, as Laszlo kind of put in his guess, and the humans decided to take them out, and their children have been left behind. And each of these children seem to have different powers. Now, a couple of them I understand. So there's two, I believe they seem almost like sisters. One of them has the power of like fire. The other one has the ability to help plants grow. There is another godling who seems to be able to steal clouds, and they've been kind of using their powers to survive because they don't have any fuel in this ruin. So the one that has fire keeps them warm and allows them to cook meals. The one that can grow plants allows them to grow a few edible plants that they can eat, and the one that can steal clouds can bring rain clouds so that they have water, because they don't have access to any other water source. And then there's another one that is able to tether and control ghosts, and I feel like she's kind of evil. Like I can't foresee this one like being good, because she like literally if you die, she'll like steal your soul and make you corporal, I think is the word, and then you can like work for them and like cook their meals for them, and she can like force you to do stuff. Like you don't have control over your body anymore, which is like really creepy. But that being said, our girl, whose name I'm always forgetting, Sarai, sorry, I only had a couple chapters with her, so I still need to learn that. So Sarai, her power seems to have to do with dreams, and it seems like she is able to visit all the people in Weep, but not like in a good way. I mean, it seems like she causes more like nightmares than anything else. So we don't really know yet what she's doing every night, or I guess every day, because she is nocturnal. So every day, Well, okay, so let me see. I'm a little confused. So she seems to take some sort of sleeping drought so that she can sleep during the day without having any dreams herself. And then at night, she seems to go to visit the dreams of people at Weep, like all of them. And I'm not really sure what she does there, so I'm assuming that the main problem that they are still facing here in Weep is Sarai. Like, she's the problem. I'm assuming her other siblings aren't that much of a problem because they don't interact with the people at all, but the fact that Sarai comes and like infiltrates their dreams, whether she does that on purpose or because she has no control over it, I'm not sure, is maybe a little concerning to the humans there. And they want these people to come and help them figure out where this god that is coming into their dreams is hiding and maybe take care of it. I'm not sure. But yes, that is where we are right now. Intrigued by the story for sure. Interested to see Laszlo and Sarai's first interaction. I'm assuming that as soon as they cross into the city, she will start to have access to their dreams. Like, she'll be like, who are these new people? And it kind of seems, based off what other people say, that Laszlo is able to interact with her a little differently in dreams than other people. So I am really excited to see their first interaction and to learn a little bit more. I call them godlings mostly because of the N.K. Jemisin Inheritance Trilogy, because that's what the kids of the godlings are called. That's not exactly what they were called here, but they do seem to be the children of the gods that were slain. But that being said, story is still going very well for me. Still enjoying the writing, still enjoying the characters that we are being introduced to. And I will go ahead and check in with you either later today, depending on how much I read, or tomorrow. Guys, so checking in from a slightly awkward location, but we have natural lighting. So I have reached page 208, so I'm only 2 pages away from where I want to be by the end of today, and it is, I think, a little after 7, so I'll definitely read probably a couple or so more chapters, but I just wanted to go ahead and check in with you. So our travelers have arrived at Weep, and we have finally figured out that the issue is that the, let's call it, palace of sorts that the gods were living in is looming over their town and just covering it in a big shadow, which has obviously killed pretty much all the plants that are there because they don't get any sort of sunlight, and the people don't like having a giant floating structure over their head that could plummet and crush them all at any moment. And so they are hoping that our travelers can figure out a way to remove it. So I will be interested to see what they do with that, because while, you know, we have someone who's an expert in explosions, I'm assuming blowing up a castle over a village is not the way to go, because it would just rain down debris on the village and destroy everything, which obviously we don't want. So Laszlo is obviously in awe of everything. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm here. So I'm definitely looking forward to learning a little bit more about Weep alongside Laszlo to kind of figure out, you know, how these people are living. Probably not living as great as they would want to be living, because they're still living under the shadow of this castle and haven't fully recovered from the battle with the gods that they had years ago. I feel like the God Slayer is an interesting character because he is the one who was, they say traitor to the gods, but like, was he a traitor? It kind of seemed like they kidnapped him and then kept him prisoner for a while and then he killed them. So like I feel like that doesn't make you a traitor. It seems like it just makes you someone who doesn't want to be a prisoner anymore. But either way, he had been the lover of Sarai's mother, the goddess of despair, which is not a good goddess, I guess. And he is Sarai's father. But just like seeing him, it's really clear that he has kind of conflicting feelings. I'm not sure if he knows if he has a daughter and if he knows that, if he thinks that that daughter was slaughtered on the day, because as far as they know, they went in there, slaughtered all the gods and all the children. So I'm assuming that he has conflicting feelings because if he knew he had a daughter, then he knows that he killed her, and despite her being the child of someone that he had very complicated feelings for, most people don't like to kill their children, especially if they're like little babies and essentially innocent beings. So I'm interested to see really what he wants done and what his response would be if he found these 5 little godlings still living in this castle, if he would want to kill them or if he would want to go ahead and keep them alive. It seems like his days of being the hero, being the god slayer, are kind of behind him now. He's just tired and just someone who feels a lot of conflicting feelings about his past and what he wants to do with his future. It seems like he has a complicated relationship with his wife, and I don't think anyone knows that they're married because they got married when they were really young, kind of secretly, and then he got kidnapped by the gods, and after that all happened, he kind of released her from the marriage, but she seems to still love him, and I'm hoping that they can work that out, because even though he kind of orchestrated this war against the gods that ended with even their innocent children being killed, I feel like he, for the most part, is a decent person. I don't see him as a villain character, at least yet. I think he's someone who made a really difficult decision and is definitely kind of living with the consequences of that, probably has like some PTSD and guilt around that. So looking forward to learning more about that character. And I know the chapter I left off on, Sarai was saying that before she withdraws her moths to come back for the day, she wanted to send them off to go check on him. So I'm interested to see what she sees, because I think he's been away from Weep for like 2 years now, and he has kind of stayed outside of the city right now because he's, I would say, like scared to return. So I'm interested to see how their reunion is going to go. As far as everything else, Sarai has kind of investigated the new people and looked into their dreams and was like, oh, we're screwed. They brought a bunch of geniuses that know how to make flying machines. So it seems like the godlings are now going to have to kind of figure out how to survive. And one of them, only one of them, the oldest, I always forget her name. What was her name? Minya. So Minya seems to have been the only one that was old enough to remember the slaughter of the gods. And she's the only reason the 5 of them are alive, because she kind of rescued them, but she is the only one who really seems to still hold a grudge against the humans. The other godlings seem to be more just like, we don't want anything to do with the humans because they'll kill us, but they also just, they've kind of run out of hate. They've been hating for like all these years, and they're like, yeah, we're kind of like, we're all out of desires for vengeance. The humans have just been living, minding their business, and we've kind of been doing the same. But it's definitely obvious that she's trying to kind of rally the troops and get them ready to kill the humans if they happen to come. So I kind of foresee her as being a bit of a troublemaker, because she is very single-minded, and I mean, I can't really blame her. She was like 6 years old and she watched like a bunch of kids get killed and her parents get killed, and she kind of took on the responsibility of raising these 4 other children that were all younger than her when she was only 6 years old. So it's not surprising that she's not the most pleasant of people, but I'm interested to see if she becomes like a villain character or if she comes around, because right now she doesn't really seem like the kind of person who's ever going to let this go. So it seems like the only way for us to kind of protect the humans from her would be to kill her. And I would feel really bad for the siblings if they had to turn against the godling that saved them to save the humans, because I feel like they wouldn't like doing that, but they would also potentially do it if they had to. Like if the humans were like, yeah, no, we're not gonna kill you because you technically haven't done anything wrong, but we will see. I really don't know, because it's very clear that the humans still have a lot of hatred for the godlings. Like every time they die and one of their ghosts go there, they're like completely disgusted and full of hate for these godlings. So I think it's going to take a lot to turn the humans' feelings for the godlings around, and to turn Minya's, or whatever her name's, feelings for humans around. We all got our prejudices and all that jazz. So yeah, she hasn't met Laszlo yet because he is staying with the Godslayer's mom instead of in the guild hall like everyone else. So she was told by one of the recently deceased people that their ghost was up there, that is where the people were. So she went there, and so she doesn't even know Laszlo exists yet. So she hasn't seen him yet, and I'm still really looking forward to their meeting for the first time, because I think that she's gonna find some interesting things in his mind, and I kind of feel that he would be able to see her in his dreams. So that will lead to some interesting interactions, and they can maybe act as almost like diplomats for their individual groups and whatnot. It would allow them to like communicate in a way. So I hope that that is the case, but we are making pretty decent progress at this point. Pretty happy with the pace that I am going, and I will go ahead and check in with you most likely at sometime tomorrow.
You get that big dope.
All right, so this might be kind of gross, but you can see this moving. No, it is not a worm. It is the tail of that lizard I just saved. And essentially, lizards can throw off their tail and it will keep moving. And it's to distract the predator. This did not work with Loki. Loki picked up the lizard and ran away. So I went ahead and got Loki and threw him inside. The cats are now inside, and hopefully the lizard takes this opportunity to run far, far away. And as far as I know, he should regrow his tail. All right, guys, you are on the cat tree. But that being said, I wanted to do a quick check-in for Strange the Dreamer. I'm on page 234 right now. I've only read like 2-3 chapters since I last checked in with you, but there has been some development that I just want to talk about, and just some thoughts that I've had. I'm getting ready to do some grocery shopping. I don't know why I have my purse on right now, but I do. So the last time I checked in, I was saying that Sarai was going to visit her father. Now, she thought she was going to visit her father. You might hear Tofu playing with ice cubes. I gave him some ice cubes in a bowl because I thought I was leaving. So sorry if you can hear him batting that around. But I thought she was going to visit her father. She thought she was going to go visit her father. But what she was doing is she was going to his home where Laszlo is currently staying. So she actually meets Laszlo. So she shows up there. She says, "This isn't my father. Who is this man? I'm going to go ahead and check out his dreams because I need to report back to the other 4 godlings so we can figure out just how much trouble we're in." And she goes in there and I should take his ice cubes away, but I can't take his ice cubes away. I'm not that bad of a mother. But she goes in there and she sees how he always dreamed Weep would be, and she's just like, "Oh my gosh, this place is amazing. I wish I could live here. This place makes me feel so safe, so peaceful. You know, maybe people like me as godlings," or I think they call them god spawns, but I don't like that word, so I keep calling them godlings, could live and be accepted because there's so many different magical creatures all around here. And it was like a really interesting place, and it would be really intriguing to see if that was ever what Weep looked like, or if that was just, you know, a compilation of all the different rumors and stories that were brought from Weep. But she walks up to Laszlo to kind of like check him out. She's like, "Who are you? You know, your dreams are so much different than everyone else's." And he's like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "Peace out." Like, she leaves. She's like, "I gots to go," you know, because she's like, "What do you mean?" Like, no one has ever seen her before, so she was obviously like thrown off by that. And I'm really intrigued to see if she returns. Hopefully she does, because I'm wanting them to interact and for him to be able to kind of act as a spokesperson for the godlings, because I feel like we're in a complicated situations. So Minya, who is the oldest of the godlings, the only one that remembers the slaughter of the gods and their children, is like, "All right, this is our opportunity to prepare to kill these humans." And all the other godlings are kind of like, "I don't know, we don't really want to do that, to be honest." But she is still just so full of vengeance and everything. And I feel like she kind of has a reason, but at the same time, we've learned a little bit more through the god killer's father, or the god killer's mother, who Laszlo is currently staying with, what exactly the gods did to this town. And it's not good. Like, the gods definitely deserve to be slaughtered. I feel like if you go in somewhere and just like turn those people into slaves and start stealing their lives and their memories and stealing their children and keeping them as laborers, and it also sounds like there was a lot of like sexual assault going on. Like, this, I think, is a young adult story, so it never like outright says that these gods took a lot of these women and men and raped them during the year that they took them, but it's definitely implied that that is what occurred. And I'm also wondering if a lot of like the god children are products of relationships between the humans and the gods, meaning that these women that were stolen were not just raped but forced to go through with a pregnancy and a birth, and then had their memories of that completely wiped, while simultaneously coming back and realizing that something was wrong and something had changed. And that is a terrible thing to go through. So I fully understand why the God Slayer decided these gods gotta die. Now the question is, did the children and the humans that got in the way, as they said, you know, deserve to die as well? Should it have been a slaughter of everyone and anything in the castle? I feel like it shouldn't have been, but I also understand that the humans were probably like, we gotta wipe them out completely because their only experience with gods was their evil. So why would they let their children grow up if their children could just grow into more gods that oppress them? So part of me understands, part of me thinks that maybe they took things too far, but I feel like Minya just sees humans as 100% evil, and I don't think she cares or understands like why the humans did what they did. Like, she almost acts as if they just killed them because they hate gods, which they do, but they had a valid reason to hate them. And she is very much, her behavior is very much like the gods of the old, unlike her other siblings. So I can definitely see her being a bit of a problem and potentially not coming out of this alive, because I don't think it would be beneficial for her siblings or the humans for her to continue to live when she is someone who wants to hold on to hate and vengeance so hard. Like, she is not a good person. She doesn't seem to be very good to her siblings or to the spirits that she traps in this castle. So I don't like her. You know, I find it hard to sympathize with her despite the fact that she went through something very traumatic, just because she's such a rotten character, in my opinion. So there's that. I mean, the more that I learn about what the gods did, the more that I understand like why the God Slayer did what he did. And also just learning about him, it doesn't seem like he did it because he's a bad person and he's bloodthirsty. Like, he is full of nightmares. Like, Sarai talks about the fact that his mind, more than any, is full of nightmares. Like, he never had his mind erased like everyone else. So he remembers everything bad that he did and everything bad that the gods did to him. And he was stuck there, it seems like, more than anyone else. Most people stay there about a year. He was trapped there for 3 years. So this is a man who has a lot of trauma, but I feel like he's still genuinely a good person. So unlike the gods and stuff, unlike Minya, I feel like he is a redeemable character who can hopefully step up in the end to be like, hey, I know that the first step to free yourselves was to completely slaughter all these gods, but I think that we should save these 5 or 4 if Minya needs to be eliminated, no offense to Minya, to go ahead and let them live with us in peace and in harmony. I feel like he's definitely a character who could convince the people to see things this way, especially since he seems really fond of Laszlo, and this is definitely a path that Laszlo would want to take. So I could see the two of them kind of using their prestige, the respect they have with the community, and just like their storytelling and everything, to kind of protect these godling children while also simultaneously using those skills to save the town from this giant cathedral or whatever, citadel, I think they called it, looming over them. So I think the two of those teaming up is definitely going to be good. And then Sarai and Laszlo teaming up will also be good. So I'm hoping to see some teamwork makes the dream work. And one thing I wanted to say why Laszlo and Sarai would just be really good together, because Sarai sees herself as the bringer of nightmares, but I think she's as much of a dreamer as Laszlo. So I can definitely see the two of them being really compatible for a friendship and a romantic relationship. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing some of that develop in this book. That being said, I think if I want to read my 60 pages today, I need to go ahead and read until page, I think it was like 72, 74. So I do still have about like 40 or so pages that I need to read today. I've only read a couple chapters, so about 20 pages. But for now, I need to finish up some errand running. I've been doing chores most of the day, and then hopefully I'll be able to sit down and get some of that reading done. 18 and today I have to get to page 344 to get my 60 pages in. So we're making good progress. I'm on my lunch break. Since we're 50% through the book now, actually we're over 50% through the book at this point, I just wanted to give you my general thoughts because I feel like I've been focusing a lot on what has been happening and some of my thoughts about what's happening and maybe predictions of what could happen or what I would like to happen, but I haven't really been letting you know like what kind of rating am I thinking. I have to admit, while I am really enjoying this story and I think it has relatively good pacing to it and it's really easy to fall into the story and I'm usually rather eager to get to it, and there's many times where I'm reading it and I don't want to put it down, it is still not giving me a 5-star vibes, and I'm not sure if it's just because I'm struggling to connect to the characters fully. I feel like there is something keeping me from really falling in love with these characters. Like, I like them, but I don't feel overly attached to either of them, and I feel like they are not like solid characters. I feel like there isn't really anything overly distinct about them that kind of separates them from the other characters in the story. So I feel like they don't have a lot of oomph to them. They blend a little bit too much in the background. So I mean, I am kind of feeling like this is a solid 4-star read at this point. Where we are in the story, Sarai has kind of spoken to Laszlo in his dreams, and I think here at the end of this chapter he's starting to realize like he's actually talking to someone and not just having a conversation with someone that he created in his dream. And she had shown up to his dream and was very surprised to see him talking to her, but he had actually created a replica of her mother based off of a drawing that he had seen, as well as the glimpse that he had had of Sarai in that first time that she came to his dreams. And she kind of took over and started talking to him, and they were talking about the library and everything, and it was a really sweet moment and everything like that. But then she asks him like, when are you coming with the flying machines? Because she's got to ask him. She's like, when are you coming, so that she can warn her siblings. And he says, we're coming tomorrow. And she's like, you cannot come. Like, you can't come or everyone will die. And the way she like warned him, I kind of wonder if she did it more to protect them as well as to protect her siblings, because it's very clear that she's not very comfortable with what Minya is doing. I really hope her name is Minya. I always forget her name, but whatever. I'm just gonna call her Minya. She has gone ahead and created a ghost army essentially, and Sarai is definitely not happy about that, because that means that a lot of these ghosts have been prisoners for years, and Minya, sorry, has been kind of turning into a villainous character and has been messing with the drought that Sarai takes so that she doesn't have dreams. So Sarai has been having a lot of nightmares and has just not been sleeping well because Minya really wants her to kill her father, but she still hasn't even found her father because he's not staying in Weep right now. So she's like, I haven't found him, and even if I did, I don't want to kill him. So yeah, not liking Minya still. I mean, it's very clear she took it very hard that she wasn't able to save more of the children on the day of the carnage, I think is what they call it, the day of the carnage, the day that the gods and their children were slaughtered. So she has definitely been steeping in hate for just like too long to be really a redeemable character right now. So hopefully Laszlo listens, but I'm not really sure how he will get the others to listen to him. They'll be like, you had a dream and we should listen to you. I don't know about that. Because while it seems that some people respect him, other people don't see much value in him. So I don't foresee them like listening to his advice or anything like that. But we will see what happens. I definitely think that things are going to get a little bit more intense here in the second half of the book, that we are going to have a bit more clashing and interaction between our two groups. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm kind of still hoping to get like a little bit more from our characters and maybe even the side characters. Everyone just feels, I don't want to say two-dimensional, but not fully three-dimensional, not fully fleshed out either. So I'm just kind of hoping for a little bit more character development throughout this story. But that is where we are for now. I'm not sure if I'll check in with you again today. It depends on, you know, what happens in the next few pages that I read, but otherwise I will check in with you tomorrow. All right, guys, so I was editing this video because these clips are very long, so it's like I better, you know, stay on top of that and maybe do like an hour of editing on the days where I'm not going to the gym, or on days where I have extra time because I don't need to worry about finishing my 60 pages. But while I was reading that, in one of my first clips, I talked about the prologue of this book. And I just wanted to kind of return to that, because usually when you hear prologue, you kind of think that this is something that occurred before the events of the book, but I think this is one of those prologues that is more hinting at a future event. So essentially in the prologue, we have a blue girl who falls from the sky and impales herself onto a fence and dies. Now, when I first read that, assumed that this was the beginning of Weep disappearing, which we now know isn't exactly the case, or doesn't seem to be, but it seems more like something that's going to happen now that the godlings and the humans are fighting. And I was just kind of trying to figure out who the person was, because the way that she was described, it says, torch a ginger buds rained out of her long hair. So one of the godlings, her name is Sparrow, and she is able to grow plants, and she likes to braid flowers into her sister's hair. So we do know it's one of the girls. I can't remember if Minya was one of the ones that had flowers in her hair. I know that, I think her name was like, what was it, Ruby or something, the fire girl, and of course Sarai had flowers in their hair. But it also said that she had plums in her pocket, which they have plum trees up there, so we again further proof that it's one of our godlings. But then it says they would say that she hadn't shed blood but wept it, that she was lewd, tonguing her teeth at them upside down and dying, that she had vomited a serpent that turned to smoke when it hit the ground. So the fact that she was, I don't know, the fact that she seems to be spending her final moments like aggressive towards the humans that are watching her death make me think that it's Minya. But then I got a little distracted by the fact that the moths were no bigger than the startled mouths of children, and even dozens together could only pluck at the strands of her darkening hair until their wings sagged, sodden with her blood. So the moths come, who are obviously, they belong to Sarai, and they seem to be trying to pick her up and save her, which at first I thought meant that it was Sarai and that her moths were coming to save her. But it could also be that Sarai is just trying to save her sister. And then it says, the blue girl's ghost gathered itself and perched, bereft upon the spear point of the projecting fanal, just an inch above her own still chest. Gasping in shock, she tilted back her invisible head and gazed mournfully up. Minya is the one who can control ghosts. Does that mean that because it mentions that she becomes a ghost that it's Minya? I mean, obviously any of them would change into ghosts, but I can't help but feel like the prologue is kind of hinting at the fact that Minya is in fact going to die, but also the prologue ends with, and across the city atop a monolithic wedge of seamless mural smooth metal, a statue stirred as though awakened by the tumult, and slowly lifted its great horned head. So essentially a lot of the minerals, there's like, I don't know how to say its name. It's some sort of mineral that only one of the gods could control, and it's what their palace, their building that's floating over the sky was made out of, and like no one else can control it. But clearly it's hinting at the fact that there is potentially someone who gains some sort of control over it, since one of the statues that it's talking about, I'm assuming that it's referring to one of the monsters that is guarding the anchors of the citadel, that is keeping the citadel kind of like in place despite there not being any sort of like wires or anything connecting them, but still. So yeah, that came to mind while I was just editing that, and so I just wanted to come back in here now that their battles are beginning between the humans and the gods a little bit. They've kind of had their initial tussle, so that is intriguing. I'm interested to see I'm right. It's obvious that one of the godlings is gonna die. My money is on Minya, but we will see. I could still be taken by surprise. Hello, so I am here for a check-in. I am on page 380. By the end of today, if I'm to read 60 pages, I should be at page 420. So I've already read a little bit. Today I'm on my lunch break. My boy Tofu is getting neutered. Yeah, he went to the vet today. They were supposed to just kind of have a checkup with him, kind of like a pre-check-in for the surgery, and I guess they just happened to have time to take him today, so he's getting snipped today. Hopefully that causes him to chill out a little bit, because sometimes he gets a little hyperactive, and they say that if once a cat is neutered, then they kind of like calm down a little bit. So hopefully that's the case. But as far as the book goes, Sarai and Laszlo have just kind of had their first official meeting. They've met, they've talked. She's gone ahead and just, sorry, the wind just blew the door closed. It's kind of breezy out today. But she's kind of told him everything about the gods, about her father, the God Slayer, because Laszlo had not known that he had killed the godlings on top of the gods. And he was like, don't like that he did that at all. And she actually kind of like defended him, where she's like, I can't help but say that I understand why they did it, and to a degree forgive them a little bit, while also acknowledging that what they did was terrible. So she has a lot of like conflicting feelings about what happened, and I totally understand that, because as a reader I have conflicting feelings about it as well, where like if I was in that situation, would I be like, should we risk it and raise these children and hope they don't turn against us? I don't know, you know, especially since they spent generations being oppressed by these gods. Okay, it wasn't just like a few years of suffering, it was like generation after generation after generation, so that you grew up with the fear of knowing what happened to your parents, what would happen to you, and what could potentially happen to your kids. And that, you know, that's a lot for humans to live with. So she obviously hates the fact that her father did that, but she also understands it. And so she kind of told Laszlo that. She's not trying to get Laszlo to like turn against her father or anything. She's just telling him like, what's up. And she also told him about her, you know, that she's the muse of nightmares and that she kind of goes out and that she's been just giving the people of Weep all these nightmares and just keeping the fear and the hate alive all these years. And she's like sobbing, and it's really clear that she just in the last few weeks has kind of woken up and been like, I don't want to do this anymore, and I'm not really proud of what I've done, and I'm not happy with the direction that Minya took us. I wish we had done things differently. And Laszlo's being really understanding. He doesn't feel any fear or hate towards her. I think he really kind of understands her situation. So really enjoyed this chapter between the two of them. We definitely got to know a lot about Sarai's feelings towards different events, which I enjoyed learning about and hearing about from her. I definitely feel like she's a better fleshed out character than Laszlo, to be honest. I feel like when we're with Laszlo, I feel like we learn so much more about like what's going on around him, and while we're with Sarai, I feel like we learn more about her as an individual. So I still don't feel like a super strong connection to Laszlo, but my connection to Sarai is definitely growing. But that being said, I'm intrigued to see where we go from here, because, you know, Laszlo was kind of talking about he feels a strong connection to her. He kind of feels like they're a team now. And I really think that the two of them are going to have to work together to figure out what they're going to do moving forward. I'm intrigued to see if he tells the others that he is in communication with Sarai, or if he kind of tries to orchestrate a plan without telling them about it. So we'll see where we go from here. We are definitely approaching the end of this story. I'm trying to think, how many pages are there in this book? If I keep up with the amount of reading that I'm planning on doing with my 60 pages a day, I should be finishing this book in the next 3 days. So really excited to be finishing up this book. Glad that we are on track for things. I'm definitely glad that I'm continuing to enjoy the story and that I am starting to connect a little bit more with the characters. Well, maybe more like one of the characters. But that being said, that is my update, and I will either check in with you, probably not later tonight because I'm going to the gym and then it's a hair wash night and everything, so I don't foresee myself checking in unless something crazy happens in the next 40 or so pages. But otherwise I will check in with you tomorrow. Page 407. Laszlo fell back on his pillows too, raised fist to his eyes and pressed. Breath hissed out between his clenched teeth. To have been granted so tiny a taste of the nectar of her mouth and so brief a brush with the velvet of her lips was unspeakable cruelty. He felt set on fire. He had to convince himself that liberating the silk sleigh and flying forthwith to the citadel was not a viable option. That would be like the prince charging up to the maiden's tower, so mad with desire that he forgets his sword and is slain by the dragon before even getting near her. I gotta say, Laini Taylor knows how to write a romantic scene. I mean, that kiss, that just barely even a kiss, like just a brush of lips, was very well done. And I also liked how her nightmares came into their dream, and the fact that she can like sleep and rest in his dream is just so cute. I love it. I really do. But it did a really good job of showing just how much she understands the terror of the people of Weep, and Laszlo now understands that fear as well. And not just the fear of the people of Weep, but the fear that she faces, like every night before she goes to sleep. And obviously, he wants to protect her from that. So hopefully he can do that, but I just wanted to pop in real quick because I read that paragraph and I was just like, that was well written. I really enjoyed that. So I'm gonna keep reading. Like I said, I gotta get to 420 by the end of tonight to be on track. Hi, handsome boy. You're so handsome. Yeah. Oh, hello. The sunlight is really bringing to attention how frizzy my hair is. But I bought some new sunglasses from Nordstrom Rack for $35 to replace the $150 pair that I lost to the ocean in Mexico last month. So that is life sometimes, guys, but at least I'm not blinded by the sun anymore. And I think they're a fun shape. I think they're funky. So that being said, I am on page 452 right now in this story, and Laszlo and Sarai are definitely falling in love, and I think they're really cute. They're young, they're inexperienced, they've been alone for most of their life, maybe not really understood by those around them, and now they have each other, and it's cute. And I hope that they get a happy ending. I know this is a duology, so whether that'll happen in this book or the next one, I am not sure, but they're having fun together. So that is that. Gotta enjoy your time before you go to war, because you may not come out of it alive. That being said, Minya is still being stubborn, so we are definitely going to have to face her. I am more and more thinking that she is the blue girl in the prologue who is impaled by a fence. So I'm assuming that her stubbornness to move on from her hate is going to cost her her life. So there's that. On top of that, we just had a chapter from Nero, and he seems to have discovered a way to melt the mezzanine. I keep wanting to, it's something with an M. What is it called? Mezzarthium. Mezzarthium? That's what the metal that the Citadel is made out of. And my guess, the author hasn't outright said it, but essentially, usually what allows him to control any metal is to use his spirit, which is like a liquid, which is like from their second heart, because I wasn't sure, like when at the beginning of the chapter they were talking about the spirit heart, if it was like an actual heart. It is, and it has like separate veins and everything. So that's what he's been using. But when he was using his own blood, it didn't work. But he has been using, or I'm sorry, when he was using his own spirit, it wasn't really doing anything. And Laszlo came to him and was like, you're using too much of your spirit. Like, you're gonna die, or you're gonna be without spirit. And so you'll be essentially like a husk of your old self. So take some of mine. And now it seems like it's working all of a sudden. And we also noticed that when the others touch the metal, I'm not going to say the name because I already forgot it again, nothing really happened. But when Laszlo touched it, it like leaves a residue on his finger. So clearly it responds to him differently than everyone else. And Nero is like, well, I guess I'm not going to be the hero of this story. Sucks to be me. But he also said that one of the reasons he came on this journey, while he was kind of openly saying, hey, I'm here to fix the problem and become a legend, he also mentioned, like, to himself that he just needed to escape. He needed to escape his aunt, the queen. He needed to escape his father. So I think he definitely is a more complex character than he lets on. And I'm not really sure how much we'll explore that in this book, but maybe he'll become a more prominent, likable character in the next book. But yes, that is where we are. Changes are happening. That explosionist, I think his name is Dave or something, Drave, which is a dumb name, but whatever. He's a dumb guy, so he deserves a dumb name. He is clearly, I don't know, he's just not a good person. He's kind of useless. All he knows is how to blow stuff up, and all he cares about is getting the reward. Like, he doesn't care at all about fixing Weep's problem or whatever. And he's kind of been cozying up to Nero, the alchemist, to, you know, get his secret for how to make gold. So I don't like him, and it seems like he's up to no good right now. I think he's kind of hoping that he can somehow explode one of the anchors, which I have a feeling is not going to work out very well, but we will see where things go. Laszlo and Sarai need to go ahead and sit down and have a conversation about what they're going to do now, because the God Slayer now knows that his daughter is alive, and he does seem to be somewhat relieved. Oh, I was like, what is that noise? I don't know if you can see my cat. Like, he was on the screen, so if you heard any weird noises, that was him. But that being said, the God Slayer seems to be conflicted about the fact that his daughter is alive. I mean, for the most part, he seems to be happy, but at the same time, he's like, what do we do now? Like, I don't know. And Laszlo is like, hey, I'll talk to her and we'll see if we can get a meeting so that we can kind of figure things out without anyone having to die anymore. And Sarai also doesn't want anyone to die, but Minya is like, yeah, invite them up here so that I can kill them. And Sarai is like, no, that's not what I mean. So Minya is definitely making things complicated. So we'll see how things go. I'm hoping that Sarai and her father get some sort of closure, and that it's not one of those things where, like, he dies saving her and is like, I'm so sorry, but I proved my love to you by dying for you, kind of situation, because books always do that. But I don't know, this book gives the vibe that it would do that. I guess we'll see. But that's my update for now, and I will go ahead and check in with you either later today, because I still have, what page am I on? I think I still have about 30 or so pages that I need to read. So if anything crazy happens, I'll check in with you later tonight. Otherwise, I will check in with you tomorrow. right, so we have verified that Laszlo's blood reacts with the metal in a way that Nero's doesn't. And Nero was saying that this metal isn't of this earth. And Laszlo's like, yeah, obviously. I mean, look at it. It's floating in the sky. And none of our materials or machines or anything can break it. And Nero was like, yeah, okay, it's not of this world. And I kind of don't think you are either, since it reacts to you. And then Laszlo was thinking about the fact that when he was brought to the Abbey as a baby, they had told him that he never cried and that he was kind of gray. Like, they thought he was sick and that he would die, but then his color changed. And every time he touches the metal, it turns him kind of gray for a while, and it doesn't really rub off until it like fades away. And so I'm wondering if it's just the way that these aliens, I guess if they're aliens, their skin reacts to this metal, and if he was around it long enough, if he would turn from gray to blue, and if the godlings were to leave the Citadel for long enough, if they would become, I guess, the color of humans. Because if that's the case, then it would be a lot easier for them to join society, because eventually they would look like normal people and they wouldn't be blue. So that is intriguing. Laszlo has also been kind of curious about what has happened to the children that were taken, because obviously they were, as they say, breeding children for 200 years. And that day they only killed about 30 of them and 5 survived. So there must have been hundreds of other children. So if they were some sort of alien species, were they going to some other planet? Are we going to interact with that other planet? I mean, is there going to be some sort of repercussions from an alien species for slaying the gods that were there? So yeah, lots of questions that need answering, and I am on page 479, so I'm going to just keep reading for a little while. A friend of mine should be calling me later tonight, but that's not for another hour or so, so I'll just be reading until she calls, and we'll see how far we make it. You know what I was thinking? I hope the music isn't too loud, but they mentioned that Greater Ellen, or whatever, one of the Ellen ghosts, had told them that in all the years that she had served, only one child seemed to have the power to control the metal, and they had taken that child away. And I'm wondering, I mean, they didn't really say like how long ago that happened, if that child was Laszlo. And there's that bird, I think they're calling her the Wraith, that bird that he saw at the beginning that kind of like looked out for the children. I wonder if she had something to do with taking him somewhere where he would be safe, potentially, because the god that controlled the metal may have seen him as a threat. I'm not sure. That was just a theory that popped into my head, and I wanted to share it. But Laszlo is heading to the anchor to see if he can kind of figure out, you know, how he responds to it. And that Drav guy, or whatever his name was, is dead, because he went and blew himself up, or blew up something and then got crushed by a rock, which he had coming, so he won't be missed. But we will see how the story wraps up. I think we are definitely approaching the end here. I only have about 40 pages. I don't foresee myself finishing it tonight, but definitely tomorrow. So most likely the next time I check in with you is to give my final thoughts for the story. Alright guys, it is a beautiful sunny morning. I cannot really see what I'm filming because I am blinded by the sun, but it is warm and I need my vitamin D, and it was very cold this morning, so I'm going to enjoy the heat while I can feel it. That being said, I have gone ahead and finished Strange the Dreamer. I finished it this morning. These last few chapters were definitely pretty intense. Was definitely very excited by what was going on. Was not excited about the fact that I was wrong about which blue girl died. So Sarai died. And I do like what the author did with that. I think that it's going to lead to some interesting things in book 2, which I have no idea when I will read that. Hopefully this year. We will see if I can get it on a TBR. But that being said, car guys just love to zoom down that road. But I really like the fact that it turned out that Laszlo was the son of that god that can control the metal. I'm sorry, I'm not good with like normal human names, let alone fantasy names, so I just use descriptors. But that was really interesting, and I think it'll create a really interesting dynamic between him and Minya, because Minya instantly sees him as like a threat to everything she built. She's like, you were out there frolicking in the field of dreams and I was out here struggling, and then you just come in with all the powers that I wish I always had. Like, she does not like him at all, and she has a way to control him now because Sarai is dead and she is a ghost and Minya controls ghosts. And she's like, hey Laszlo, if you want me to keep your girl alive, then you're gonna have to do everything I tell you to do. And I'm like, that is not good. That is not good at all. I am really curious to see what happens in the second book, because it could definitely lead to some bad things for Weep. And honestly, Weep was kind of pissing me off, just because they were like, oh yeah, one of these godlings who we know as a friend and someone we really like and trust, and turned out to be a godling, has saved us. But they're still like, should we hate him now? And I'm like, no, you shouldn't. I don't know. I just don't have much patience for prejudice. You know, I'd be out here hearing about it all day, every day here in our society. So I guess in this book, I'm just like, I feel like they're proving that they're not that bad. But then we have Minya on the other hand, who's probably going to undo any sort of progress that was made with Laszlo being a good person and therefore a good godling and all that, and possibly winning the favor of the humans. Minya's probably going to screw that all up, and we'll be back at space number 1, but oh well. Really enjoyed these last few chapters. Really enjoyed Laszlo and Sarai's relationship. Is it fast-paced? Yes. These two have only known each other for a few days, and now he's out here willing to do whatever he can to keep her spirit alive, like even if it means potentially destroying a whole town, it sounds like. So it's pretty intense for them only knowing each other for such a short time, but I thought it was so romantically written. It was just so beautifully done that I fully believe that their love is that deep after such a short amount of time. So these two are clearly like soulmates. They're meant to be together and they just work. So didn't have too much of a problem with the pacing of the romance being a little unrealistically fast. Other than that, I think I'm gonna go ahead and give this book 4.5 stars. I kind of thought it would be a 4-star read for the majority of this, but I really was happy with the ending. I think that it did a good job of kind of bringing everything together, escalating the situation, kind of solving one of the big problems while also letting us know that some of the other smaller problems that stemmed from this larger problem are still present and need to be fixed, while also simultaneously creating a new very serious problem that we are excited to read about in the second book. So I think the author did a good job setting up book 2 in here. I just can't give it a full 5 stars because I think it did have some pacing issues where it just felt felt a little slow for a good portion of the story. I feel to a degree that this is leaning towards like a cozy fantasy or a light fantasy. It feels like it has a lot of intense. My cat is climbing up the screen again. Oh my gosh, he's like way at the top. Anyway, I feel like it had a lot of really intense fantasy aspects to it, where it had, you know, certain types of magic. It had magical mysteries. The times that they spent in dreams were obviously very steeped in magic as well. There wasn't as much politics. I wonder if I got it mixed up with another book, because I thought someone said that this book was highly political, which I feel like it isn't a political at all. So maybe I got it mixed up with another book or something, or maybe the second book is more political. I'm not sure, but I felt like it had cozy vibes, especially all those times that Sarai and Laszlo spent in his dreams. It just felt very sweet. It felt very domestic, and so I feel like it wasn't quite an intense fantasy like I was kind of thinking it would be. It was more slow paced and meandery and kind of fluffy at times. So the ending I thought was a little more intense, and I enjoyed that aspect of it, but I also enjoyed the fluffy moments. So I thought it was a decent balance, maybe leaning a little too heavily towards the fluffy moments, but I think the author was really focusing on building a relationship between Sarai and Laszlo, so that when Laszlo decides that yes, I will do whatever Minya says to keep Sarai alive, we're like, yeah, that makes sense, because you have built such a strong relationship between the two of them. So really glad that I went ahead and finally read this book after having it on my TBR for like 3-4 years. I've definitely been putting it off for a long time. I can definitely see why this is a well-beloved story. It is really well written, and the characters are rather enjoyable, and it does have an interesting plot to it. And I'm definitely eager to learn more about where the children went, you know, like, are they aliens? Are they gonna come back into the story? What's gonna happen with Sarai being a ghost under the control of Minya right now? What is Minya gonna do with Laszlo? How is the town of Weep gonna respond? Are they going to leave their prejudices behind? So lots of interesting things will happen in the next book. I really do want to read it soon, and I'm not sure yet if I'll do a spoiler-filled vlog for that one as well. We'll see how I'm feeling when I picked it up. I did enjoy doing a vlog for this. I know it was super chatty, and that I spent a lot of time just kind of like rehashing what was happening in the book. So maybe this was a good vlog for people who were looking to be reminded of what happened in book 1 before jumping into book 2. But yes, I had a great time. 4.5 stars, an excellent read. And guys, thank you so much for watching this vlog. I would love to know your opinions of it in the comments down below. Feel free to leave any spoiler filled opinions. I don't think I mentioned at the beginning of the video, but I will put a disclaimer just so people know that there could potentially be spoilers in the comments as well, because I would just love to know all your thoughts on this book. Obviously not your thoughts on book 2 if you have already read that, because that would be spoilery for me. And I want to go into that book relatively blind, just like I went into this one relatively blind. But as always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!